Mean Streets is the third movie directed by Martin Scorsese. Welcome back to the Martin Scorsese reviews. I know this has been put off for way too long, but this is the third film from this great director, and this stars Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, and David Proval. And in this movie, we follow a slice of street life in Little Italy among lower echelon mafiosos and unbalanced punks and petty criminals. A small-time hood gets in over his head with a vicious loan shark. In an attempt to free himself from the dangers of his debts, he gets help from a friend who is also involved in criminal activities. This was released in October 14th, 1973, and was produced under a budget of $650,000 and made back $3 million worldwide. And this is the movie that really showed the potential of what would become the rise of one of the greatest talents in film directing, and an arrival as an important cinematic voice with a fantastic story. So let's talk about Mean Streets. So, as far as this movie goes, I will say I was looking forward to rewatching because I have seen this once before during the pandemic, along with a few other Scorsese films, but to watch it for this review and back in February of 2023, I was really hyped because to go from two movies that weren't the best start to fully show what we're going to get here is that it does feel closer to the type of movies that we expect Martin Scorsese to come out with today. But the only difference when it comes to this movie is that it's telling a story about the hyper-violent gangsters. So it's good to see that this is one of those movies that does catapult him into that big status as a filmmaker that he's always had. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's talk about Mean Streets and why this movie is pretty important into the film career. So let's go and talk about it, shall we? In terms of the positives when it comes to this movie, I will say the biggest praise I do have for this movie is that this movie, despite its low budget, this shows you that the potential of what this legendary great director, even at his old age, is what he's capable of. I will say this is a very well acted film, it's a very well made film, and it's a very competently well executed film in terms of this. In this movie, Scorsese abandons the experimental type style entirely, and he has a much more focused story. And like I said, this is not hyper-violent gangsters, but rather this is a story about two different gamblers and the troubled relationship between the two brothers. You actually do get to feel a lot of that Scorsese-ness here. All the famous signatures that Scorsese style is known for: guilt and redemption, the gritty New York locale, even though this was filmed in Los Angeles, some of that rapid fire editing, even with some of his long movies, the macho posting, and a lot of the profanity in there, it's all there. And it does have a soundtrack with contemporary music because he never, if only rarely, uses a movie with a musical score. And for the first movie with Robert De Niro as his lead, he definitely does great. One of many collaborations with this great director, and he gives an amazing monologue here for his performance. I also will say Harvey Keitel is very good, as is a brother of well. You do feel the bond between these two, and they both give very memorable performances. And you see why both of these actors, they are the go-to guys here. And the rest of the cast in this movie, especially from, you have, of course, Amy Robinson, Richard Romanus, Cesare Danova, and of course, Amy Robinson, they all do a very solid job in terms of what they can play with in terms of the performances. Each of them does get some great moments. Some great cinematography by Wakeford. It's very shot well. It goes at a brisk pace, and you definitely can see that this is the start of what Scorsese is going to truly show what he made of, and it definitely does get you there in terms of what you can play with here. And the script here, in terms of the story, this is the first film where you feel like Scorsese's being more focused and he seems more confident here. And you could tell he was finally setting it into his comfort zone here. And it also applies to his technical aspects as well. It does have the feeling that has akin to Scorsese projects today, and it definitely is getting you inside of it. And this is far closer to what he does stick with, and he has stuck with for the remainder of his career, even though he's done a lot of shit like Hugo, and he's also done things like, of course, some great films like you have the iconic Shutter Island, The Aviator, and even recently like Silence and Killers of the Flower Moon. And no matter what you think of Martin Scorsese, with whether he is your thing or not, you have to give it up in terms of to what he's able to accomplish at that time, because what he is able to accomplish here, anything you do see a director has done before, and it definitely go into it, and it definitely knows that it's telling you you're gonna get the movie that you're coming to see, and you're going to enjoy it. So it definitely goes into exactly what this is, and I know what the film really excels at, and it really does go what you coming for here. And there is a bittersweet moments in terms of the darkness here, so it really does know what you're gonna get here. And for this, going into the issues of this, is still not one of his best though. I think what holds this back here is there are some slight pacing issues in the second half of this movie. You can tell where some of the second half is a little draggy, of course. And some of the characters in this, while we do get some great moments with these characters, they're not as strong as some of Scorsese's other characters that he's done and he will do for however long he is with us. But I will say what he's able to accomplish with this is amazing to me, that you definitely are gonna get a master at work. And so you definitely get what a master at work for greatness. And the ending is not as quite strong as the first two halves. So of course you do have to take that for what you will. This was made on a very small budget, so you definitely are gonna have to get that. But overall thoughts in terms of this is not one of his best, but Mean Streets shows great promise of what Martin Scorsese will rise up to be in future movies that I have went through in this director review series, which I'm planning to finish since 2023. It's not the best one, but this is far more solid than his first two movies, and it's still very impressive to see him starting to become the master of his craft and finding something that works. It may not be one of his best, but it is a great step in the right direction for this incredible, talented director. So for that, I would give this a high recommendation. If you want to see one of his movies that's not so long, I would give this one a watch, and I think you will quite enjoy it. So definitely go for it. You'll be glad you did. And good to be back talking about some Scorsese, even if I'm a little late to the party. Well, that's gonna do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.